All right. So now we're going to get down to the fun stuff when it comes to learning how to code. And that's actually getting your environment set up and getting to the point where you can run your very first program. And this isn't going to be anything that's like super spatial yet. Simply go and let us know that everything is working. But it's always like a crucial first step when you're getting set up with things. And so I want to take a little step back right now and explain what a programming environment is and what it isn't, and some of the terminology that goes along with this. Uh, you don't really have to worry about remembering this, and I will put like a little bit of vocabulary in the notes for each video post. Uh, but a programming environment is sometimes called an IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. But the point of this is it's a program which lets you edit and write programs. And there's a lot of reasons that you want to do this. Now, you could use like a text editor, run this from a command line window. Uh, it's kind of the hard way of doing things. You'd have to do a bit of work to get that set up, configured, and be able to do it yourself. And that's not what we're trying to learn how to do right now. It's good stuff to know how to do. It's good stuff to understand how all this operates. But, we don't need to mess with that. And so what we're going to use is called Visual Studio. And Visual Studio is a programming tool which has been around as long as the .NET stack has, so about 22 years by now, give or take. And what Visual Studio allows us to do is to type out code on a screen, let us see if there's an issue with that code, go ahead and add new pieces of code, new projects, and to be able to hit a button and run this all at once. And this is something you can accomplish by some configuration if you want to take the time to do that. But again, we're not learning how to do that. We're learning actually how to write professional level programs. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and install this. Before I do that, I want to explain a couple of things. Um, Visual Studio itself targets the Windows platform, and there is now a version for Mac. This is part of Microsoft's push to kind of make their tooling more platform agnostic. A good business strategy, honestly, but it also is making things better and better for developers who have typically used Mac OS X. But you have Visual Studio for Mac, which you can download. A little bit of a bummer if you're on Linux is that there still is not Visual Studio for Linux yet. It's been something Linux users have been asking for, but you can select to download and run Visual Studio Code, which will give you a lot of the functionality that Visual Studio will, not all of it by any means, but with some configuration, it should give you a pretty decent experience with development. And I would generally tend to figure that somebody's running Linux, they're probably at least technically or technical enough to see what they need to do to set that up and get going with it. But going back to Windows machines for a moment, Visual Studio comes in three flavors. You have Professional, Enterprise, and what we're going to be using, which is Community. Professional and Enterprise right here are basically more intended towards large professional development teams. And these come with some options and features that make it easier for like a group of programmers to collaborate. But since you're learning right now, we'll just go ahead and opt to download Visual Studio right here. So free download, free is always good. We'll go ahead and click this, and it will give us the option to download and install, or it downloads an installer right here. So we'll go ahead and click that to get started with the installation process. Yes, we want to make changes to the device. Visual Studio installer. And it'll take a second here for the installer to go ahead and get soft ready. I wanted to talk about this a little bit because the installation process has a ton of options here. Where they say workloads, this is basically like the various kinds of projects and everything you can run, the various types of things. Since Visual Studio has become like it's being more integrated in like Microsoft's open source initiatives, like cross-platform initiatives, there's like more options that you can have for building things on it. For example, right here you can do Python. Python's a scripting language, but it's very popular for a number of application types. It's also used a lot in learning how to code. We have Node.js right here, which is very popular back-end server-side framework to use, and so on. But what we're only concerned about right now is doing .NET desktop development. So we want to make sure it's just clicked over here. And you'll see like a number of options over here for installing like different frameworks and stuff. Don't worry about selecting anything there, because what you are choosing, like on the default options of Visual Studio, it will install everything you need. So once you've done that, you come over and click install down here. And it just takes a little bit of time. It could be anywhere from like maybe 15 to 20 minutes to an hour or two. Depends on your computer speed, system specs, what you've chosen to install, internet speed, and all that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click the install button and pause recording while this installs. Talk to you in a bit.